Morning, I want to speak to you about priorities, about what is important in your life. And really, what is that one thing that you need to accomplish in this specific time and maybe season in your life? Now, there's one thing that you and I might have in common. You know, I am easily distracted. So we visited some friends who've known us for a very long time up in Howick recently. I wasn't up in Howick, but we were on another occasion. And this man, our friend Dr. Warman, he said to Don, "I think your husband's got ADD. You know, he just like can't sit still enough. And maybe some of you are like, I'm easily distracted." In fact, Dara will be speaking to me, and the Sharks score a try, and then she will say, "Did you hear what I was talking about?" And any of you men can identify with Stewie, like you know. Okay, and fortunately, I was at school at a time where we didn't have all these labels, you know, ADD, ADHD, and all these other things. And I probably, if I was labeled in those, if I was at school these days, I would probably have the whole alphabet: A, B, C, E, D, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P. You know, so like that, and probably all sorts of medication and stuff like that. The problem is, folks, every one of us gets distracted, and we get distracted by things that are not as important as the thing that we are busy with. Generally, we get distracted by things that are not that important from that which we are distracted from. And losing focus, you know, in some areas of your life, that's not important. Not important. You're going fishing, you know, and you're waiting for a bite, and somebody speaks to you, telling you a joke. You missed a bite. You'll catch another fish somewhere there, another time. But other times in your life, when you get distracted, it's really, really serious. I mean, I really hope that the surgeons who have worked in me over the years, they don't have the rugby on the corner of the TV in the operating room, and they're going, "Ooh, just about to score a try." You know, there's times that you really, really need to focus. You cannot afford to take your eye off the ball, because there are certain times that if you don't accomplish what you're busy with, it has consequences for later life. You know, life is just not all that dreamy. And perhaps this morning I'm going to be able to say something in this sermon, which will help you to break a habit, which will help you to finish that project, to help to maybe restore a relationship, maybe complete that degree, maybe pay off that debt which you've been distracted from because you've been taking your money and spending it somewhere else. Maybe this morning there's a relationship that you're involved in that you need to retire. Just say, enough's enough. I'm being distracted. I need to pay attention to what's going on. And so what is now, we're asking the question, what is it now that needs your undivided attention? What is urgent that is distracting you from what is important? Because you see what happens. Every day, urgent comes up. You know, the phone call, and people talk to you, and then, you got the WhatsApp, and all of a sudden, something becomes urgent, and it distracts you from what's important, what you've been doing, what you're committed to do, and all of a sudden, you are distracted from what you should be doing. And we've got to be careful that we don't let what is urgent distract us from that which is important, because everyday stuff comes up. Now, I want to take you to a scripture in the Bible. Maybe you want to underline it, and it's a fantastic verse. And really, this man, he understood that you cannot let things distract you. You cannot let people, things, all sorts of things distract you. It's one statement. It really might help you focus this morning, and maybe you'll be able to say, "Wow, I needed that verse in my life." So we're going to the book of Nehemiah. Let me remind you that Nehemiah was he's an ancient Jewish exile. Now, he served a man by the name of Artaxerxes I. He was the king of Persia. Now, when Persia came to rule, they were the world power. They were, so that would make him the most powerful man in the world. Like we might contemplate and even discuss who's the most powerful man in the world right now. He was then. The time is 444 BC, before Jesus Christ. And at this stage, Judea and its capital city, Jerusalem, had become a vassal state to Persia. Now, what's a vassal state? Well, because this country had been so beaten up and so overthrown in war that they had to pay taxes and levies to Persia. They were a nothingness people. They were just down and out, and anybody could just run over them. They were a vassal state, and they were like this for really over 300 years. Now, Israel was in totally disarray. If you remember, we can go back to, it started with the Assyrians. The Assyrians conquered them, and then along came the Babylonians. And this is a story that you know really well. Then Babylon said to the king of Jerusalem there, hey, you need to go us and do this and do that. And he said no. And so Babylon sent the armies, surrounded Jerusalem, really starved them to death, and then overthrew them. And they took a bunch of people into captivity. And then after the Babylonians, then the Persians took over from the Babylonians. And remember, you'll remember Babylonian captivity. And of course, Babylonian captivity was when they came, they took the Fab Four along with all the brightest to Babylonian captivity. Can you remember them? Who the Fab Four? Shadrach, Meshach, the Abednego, and who was the other one? Daniel. So these guys, so what happened when Babylon overthrew Jerusalem? They don't want everybody. They were going to feed all these people. So what are we going to do? We take the brightest minds. We take the fittest men they can fight in our armies. That's what they did. They left the rest, the people who couldn't work or couldn't do anything. They left them in Jerusalem. And that's why they were just an absolute mess. And then along comes Persia. And Persia, they overthrew Babylon. And a man by the name of Cyrus the Great, so those of you who study history might remember him. He comes in and he said, what's all these Jews doing here? And he said, oh, well, they came from that captivity that, he said, no, we don't need. And he said to the Jews, if you want to go home, you can go home. And so many of them chose to go home to Jerusalem. Many of them chose, say, listen, we were born in Babylonian captivity, so they stayed there. And so those who went home, they found that Jerusalem was a shambles. The temple had been destroyed. Solomon's great, beautiful temple destroyed. Everything gone from it. The walls gone. All the walls had been destroyed. All the gates gone. Where they used to grow all their crops had now become forest because it's such a long time. It had all gone. It was, and then the people, they kind of built another little temple. We might, I don't know what to really call it, but it was a shadow. This is something kind of to worship in. But they were embarrassed by it. And this went on for over 100 years. Now, Nehemiah, he never left Persia. He's up there, and he appears to have grown up in a wealthy family, and he gets promoted. He eventually becomes the cupbearer to the king. He's Artaxerxes. So with Cyrus, and eventually we get Artaxerxes. And so Artaxerxes is effectively now the world's most powerful man. And so while he is there, Nehemiah's brother, who left and went back to Jerusalem, he comes to visit with an entourage. And Nehemiah said, how's it going in Jerusalem? And his brothers say, it's terrible. It's absolutely shocking over there. And he tells him what's going on. Let's read Nehemiah chapter 1 and verse 3 together. And they said to me, his brother and the entourage, the remnant there in the province who survived the captivity are in great distress, and they're in disgrace. Everybody looks at that city, and it looks at absolute tatters. And the wall of Jerusalem is broken down, and its gates have been burned with fire. The capital city of the Israelites, of Judea, it's finished. It's no more. It's dangerous. I mean, you can't sleep at night. You have to sleep with one ear open because there's no wall. There's no gates to keep the enemies out. And it is degrading. I mean, you go to worship in a temple that has absolutely been ransacked. Now, look at Nehemiah chapter 1 and verse 4. This tells us how Nehemiah felt about this. And it came to pass when I heard these words that I sat down and he's wept. Nehemiah's absolutely distraught. Although he's up there in Persia, his heart is with his people in Jerusalem. I sat down and wept and mourned certain days, and I fasted and I prayed before the God of heaven. And then one day he comes to serve the king, Artaxerxes the first, and Artaxerxes notices there's something wrong. He's different. He's not his happy, cheerful, normal self. And he asks him, what's going on with you? Why are you so downcast, Nehemiah? And Nehemiah makes this plea to the most powerful man in the world. He tells him what has happened. And he tells him that about his people are in great distress, that they're even having to pay Persia for protection from their enemies. And Artaxerxes says to Nehemiah, okay, I'll give you the long leave that you're asking for. And not only does he give him leave of absence, he gives him resources, he gives him protection, he gives him men to go and help him, and he goes back to Jerusalem. If you read the book of Nehemiah, it's not a very long book, but Nehemiah gets back there and he does a survey. He walks the city, he walks the walls, he sees the broken gates and the walls and the temple and the forest. He does the survey. Great leader. He does this survey and he says things are not like they should be. And then he does the most amazing things. And I don't know how does a foreigner just walk in here and although he's the same people, they just listen to him. And he assigns every family. You see, you live here, so this part of the gate, you fix that up. And you live over here, you fix that gate. And you guys can't, you there, you're going to work on that gate. And you work on that wall. And so he assigns people to every part of the wall. And he gets them working. And he builds the wall. And look, folks, this is good news if you're in Jerusalem. The people are upbeat because now the wall, they're going to have protection again. And they're able to go and they're going to be able to go and grow their crops and be able to sleep at night soundly without worry from the enemies. But this was bad news if you are an enemy of Jerusalem who live in the surrounding areas, because every time you need something, hey, you take a bunch of hitmen, you just walk in to the thing and you help yourselves and off you go again. So the people, the enemies, were not very happy about this. They couldn't take advantage of them anymore because a city with a wall was a military threat. And so the enemies of Jerusalem, they started to intimidate the workers. They intimidated their families. There was the threats of the attacks. And eventually, while they're building this wall, Nehemiah had to, some of the families said, you work while you guys stand guard. And then while you guys are working, you guys stand guard. And so he had to set guards to look after the people during the building of the wall. Now let's read Nehemiah chapter 6. And I'm going to read from, let's read from, I say 6 and verse 1, and then I've got verse 6 up there. That doesn't make sense. So this is Nehemiah chapter 6 and verse 6. Now when this was reported, or it was reported to Sanballat, you need to know, the number one enemy of Jerusalem, the number one enemy of Nehemiah. This guy hated the Jews, and he had some henchmen, and they were named Tobiah and Geshem. He was an Arab. And to the rest of our enemies that I had rebuilt the wall, it was reported to them, and that no breach was left in it, although at that time I'd not installed the doors in the gates. The walls were up, but we're busy. We hadn't finished the walls, the doors in the gates. Sanballat and Geshem sent a message to me. Now, folks, this is really, really important. Come, let's meet together at Sepharim in the plain of Ono. But they were plotting to kill him. Sanballat was saying, listen, let's do coffee. Let's have a chat. Let's talk about the rugby, whatever. But that was his intention was when he comes here, we are going to kill him. Now, you see, Nehemiah, he could have opted for, hey, okay, let's go and do coffee. Let's go and have a meeting. I could do a break from the wall. I'll just tell the people I'm off to have a meeting. Because Nehemiah, being the great leader he was busy with building himself. Him and his family were there on the wall, there building the gates. And he could have said, taking a break from that and just tell them, I've got a meeting with some important people. He didn't do that. Because you see, you can sometimes put whatever you want now over what you want most. Over what's become urgent, the urgent meeting over what you value most. The optional over the essential. Sometimes you work late and miss dinner and then you're not with the kids. And eventually you get down to retirement age and think, was it worth it? Was all those late nights and the overtimes and missing dinner with the family, was it worth it? But at the time, it looks like it. Because, hey, the boss called me in or whatever, and you can kind of justify it. But, folks, this statement will bring you back to earth. And I hope you this morning, when you think about what's important to you in this phase of your life, the season of your life, that you will think about this statement and maybe it will ring a bell. Maybe it'll help you to say, to stick to what you're doing and not get distracted by all sorts of other things. Nehemiah chapter 6, and we're dropping down to verse 3. So I sent messages to them saying, more than one guy because he probably needed protection, I'm doing a great work and am unable to come down. What I'm doing is important. Meeting with you is not important. Don't try and distract me from what I'm doing. So he was busy. So when you're opted for the now rather than the long term, because this is the long term, building walls, putting the gates back in, that's long term. But sometimes we opt for the now. We opt for the golf game that will pull us away from the family. We'll pull up, that fishing trip that will pull us away from doing what's important. When you're tempted with the immediate over the ultimate. Folks, sometimes this happens when we're involved in education. You're busy studying, and it's so easy. Your pals call and say, let's go and do this, let's go and do that, and this is important. The exam's coming up, but sometimes you opt for the immediate rather than for the long time. Nehemiah said, I am doing a great work. I'm unable to come down. So I'm asking you this morning, what's important to you right now? And we're all in different phases of our lives. So what's important to you in this season of your life? And then the other question that goes with that is, what's your biggest distraction? What is your biggest distraction? What's pulling you away from doing what's important? This is a fantastic question. Look at the second part of Nehemiah chapter 6 and verse 3. Why should I stop work while I leave it? Why should I stop the work while I leave it and come down to you? What I'm doing here is of critical importance. Why should I go off and be with you? Look at verse 4. Then they sent messages to me 4 times, worded in this way. I answered them with the same wording. 4 times. Sanballat, Tobias, and all these guys. Come on, let's meet. Let's do coffee. Let's have a chat. Let's talk about this and all that. And exactly the same wording needs to be made like our wording as Nehemiah gives us. What I'm doing now is important. I am not getting distracted by what you're calling me to do. And folks, he's not saying, about next week, about a few hours' time. It won't be long, then I'll get to you. This is not a scheduling conflict. This is about priorities. It's a priority conflict. What needs to be taken care of right now? This is not about finding room in the calendar. Because if you're distracted, you're always going to find room in the calendar to do what is distracting you. But he had pre-decided what was important. Then they sent message to me 4 times, he said. And I answered the same way, the same wording. I'm doing a great job. Why must I leave it to come and chat to you? Why should I stop and come down to you? Folks, of course, been here many years, so many of you know with our family and many of us in the church, we love our sport. We love our sport. So all my life I've been involved in all sorts of wonderful things. And, whether it was Les and I still finding time to, I've got a license, by the way, Les, to go fishing again with Les. And he's always on my back when we're going, and there was the marathon running and the comrades and the Arguses and the scuba diving, all those wonderful, wonderful things. But a couple of years ago, I got into paragliding. A couple of years ago, probably, 10, 15 years ago. I tell you what, I loved it so much. This was like the ultimate. There's something incredibly special about being way up there in the sky and not having a motor on your back. You just got this wing and it's silent. It is the most amazing thing, and to have the skills to learn to work the thermals. I loved it so much. And Grant was involved as well, my brother. But eventually we had to come to a decision and say, we can't do this anymore because it takes an awful lot of time. You can't do it in Durban because we don't have any decent hills from which to launch, and the thermal activity doesn't work here on the coast. You've kind of got to go inland. It's so weather dependent, and that means we're always going to be away from our families. And when you've got a young family, you cannot afford to do that. And so it was the time, the weather, the travel, and it's not the most safest sport in the world. There's relatively danger. And I had to really do some heavy introspection and say, I love this so much, but why must I leave my wall? My family, my ministry was important. If I snuff it on a hill, but what about the people that I leave behind? So eventually I had to come to the decision, I'm being distracted from where I'm needed, from my family, from my wife, from my children, from my church. And so Grant and I eventually went for one last flight. We went to Wangam up here in New Germany, and we had a flight there, and that was it. We packed up, we sold everything all our gliders and our variometers, all our instruments and everything. We got rid of it and said that was a season, but no longer. There is more important things that we need to do. And so some of you are maybe in a season when your life is, now that we've got children, we can't do that anymore. We used to do it when we were single, but we can't do that anymore because this is an important season. We are building this wall at the moment, and we're not going to let anybody distract us. You are doing, as Nehemiah said, I'm doing a great thing. Let me say to you parents who have got small children, you're doing a great thing. And sometimes it means there's other things that you absolutely love to do. You can't do that. I think of, we've had a number of our wonderful singers here. Let me not mention any, but they love to come and sing. But sometimes it's, hey, you know what? We've got children to look after during church. We have to give up the thing that we love so much because there's an important thing that we are doing. So parents, you need to look at your small children, and when distractions happen, you need to say to yourself, I'm doing a great work now, I cannot come down. Sorry ladies, I can't join you for that party. Sorry, we can't go away from that weekend. Men, you might be able to say, sorry, I've got a family now. We can't go away on those long fishing trips. So we can't go and play golf. That's going to take the entire Saturday, and the poor wife has to stay at home and take care of the kids. Every now and then, but listen, I'm doing a great thing now. It's a seasonal thing. You might have to say no for now, but not forever. No for now, but not forever. There'll be a time when the kids were up and they're older, and then we'll be able to do that trip again. For those of you who are studying right now, you're busy with degrees or whatever. I'm thinking of, I see Melissa sitting at the back, starting off with brand new degree at the back. And you're going to have to look at your education and your studies, and you're going to have to say, to all the distractions, I'm doing a great thing now. Use the words of Nehemiah. I'm doing a great thing now. And I cannot come down. I can't do this. I cannot be pulled here. I can't do the parties and the stuff and all that stuff that I need to do. Wives, maybe you can, you look at your husbands. There was a time when you're single and you do all these other things and you look at your families and you can say, I'm doing a great work now. I'm doing a great now. Singles, let me ask you this. What is the direct route to your preferred future? Where do you want to be? And are the things that are distracting you, are they pulling you away from the direction and from the destination where you would like to be? Don't trade that. Don't trade that. You are writing the story of your life. And many people have got to old age and they say, how do I get there? Well, you got distracted because you never finished that. You never finished it. You didn't stick the course. The things that were urgent overtook the things that were important, building that wall, that career. Sanballat discovered Nehemiah, he's not moving off that wall. He's going to finish that wall. So what he did is he started to spread rumors. You know what? The reason Nehemiah is doing this, he wants to be king. So they spread this news, and it goes back to Persia, goes back to Artaxerxes. Hey, listen, that guy that you let go, your cupbearer, he wants to be king, so he can usurp and he's building a wall, so he's got a city from where to fight for. You know what? Nehemiah didn't even react to the rumors. And sometimes that's what we do is we chase all these rumors. People say this about us, say, he did that and she did that. Nehemiah didn't even react. And neither did Artaxerxes. He knew the character of this king. And Nehemiah absolutely ignored him. And rumors can be distracting. Let me go down to verse 15. So the wall was completed on the 25th of the month, Elul, in 52 days. It's the most staggering thing, folks. 52 days Nehemiah completed the wall. Look at verse 16. When all our enemies heard about it and all the nations surrounding us saw it, they lost confidence. They lost confidence, for they realized this work had been accomplished with the help of our God. But when I say the help of our God, let me understand this, folks. You can read Nehemiah, you won't read one miracle. This is not God throwing the stones into place. This is not God saying, whoosh, and all of a sudden the gates. When people get together and they do a God thing, when they prioritize and not get distracted, 52 days. Folks, our municipality can't even build a road in 52 days. It takes them years with all the modern equipment. You can't even fill a pothole in 52 days. They rebuilt the city in the staggering time. Folks, it's amazing what can be accomplished when you put your hand to the wheel and you are not distracted. So I'm asking you this morning, what is your wall? What is the thing that you're doing right now that you say, this is important to me, and I know there's all sorts of things out there I'd like to get involved in. I'd like to pick up another sport. I'd like to get the golf clubs and dust them off, but not now, because this is important. Is there a habit to break? Is there a business to start? Is there a relationship that you need to repair? Is there a debt that you need to pay off? So instead of spending your money on cappuccinos, I'm going to pay this is important. I'm going to pay this thing off until I start spending money on other things. Maybe it's a daily routine that you need to look at and see what are the obstacles there. Maybe it's a case of, who do I need to eliminate from my life? Who do I need to eliminate? Now, understand, I'm not find a hitman and take them out. But who do I need to say, listen, I need to stay away from them. They're pulling me away from my part of the wall. Because if I do my part of my wall and somebody other people, we will have a finished God thing right now. Folks, you do it decision by decision, and somebody is depending on you to stay focused. So, in conclusion, What is your wall? And are you willing to stay on it till completion? Let's stand together as we sing.